Hey everyone, my name's Adan. I'm a law student at the University of Chicago Law School. I'm making this video to help lawyers understand how AI works and to show them what tools are available to them in legal practice. So I've been using AI since the first GPT model came out, which I think was 2021 or 2022, and it's completely changed my life. It's completely changed the way I view work, and I've used it all throughout law school. I've used it for legal work outside of law school. I've used it for my personal everyday life and work. It's an incredible tool, and I think it's very important for every lawyer to learn how to use these tools. And I noticed that there wasn't really any guide or any video that explained how these tools work at a broad enough level so where anybody could understand, but also going deep enough to where you could actually go in and try to use them. So my hope is that by the end of this video, you understand how AI works, and also you start getting your feet wet with some of these tools. All right, so let's get into it. So the AI that I'm talking about here, there's a lot of different types of AI. The AI that I'm talking about here are what's called large language models, also known as LLMs. And what large language models do at their core is just predict the next most likely word given an input, right? So it's a piece of software that, given a prompt or given an input, it's going to just predict the set of next most likely words based on the last word. And so there's a lot of sources that you can look at that are way more technical than this video will be. But I think it's important. The important part that I want lawyers to understand is that it's just predicting the next most likely word. It's not thinking, it's not learning, like actually, it's just it's a pattern recognition type of software. So I'm going to show my phone to help explain this a little bit better. So, okay, I have my notes app up right now. And so in my notes app, I'm going to type in, hello, how are, and so what the phone is going to do is it's going to pull up the next most likely words right here. So if I start tapping on it, it's going to keep doing that, right? The thing is that, as you can see, it's not very smart, right? So a smartphone is actually not as smart as a large language model, but that's basically what AI is doing at its core, like these large language models. That's basically what they're doing is they're predicting the next word. But like I would say on steroids, like at a much larger scale. And the reason for that is because the way that this type of software is built is the AI is given, I think it's up to a trillion now, trillion parameters, so trillion sets of examples of what the next most likely word should be across a set of different categories. I mean, it's trained on books, it's trained on articles, it's trained on case law, a lot of information, right? And so based on all that, it's kind of taken the average of all that and, given some tweaks, it's outputting the next most likely word. And what it does is it allows it to know how much information to put out based on what you're inputting. It knows when to stop. But anyways, that's kind of how a large language model works. And again, there's a lot more technicalities, but the most important thing is just knowing that it's just a word predictor. So anyways, so on top of these large language models are tools, which is what we see as users, right? And so what I've identified four sets of tools that lawyers use in their everyday practice or that I think are useful for lawyers. And that's what I'm going to go over in this video and show some examples. So the first tool are chatbots. Then you have RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. Then you have voice AI, like models, and you have agentic AI. So I'm going to cover each of those. And by the end, you'll see how they all kind of are merging together, and the lines are becoming blurred across all four of these because a lot of these already have capabilities of one or more of each. Anyways, let's start with chatbots. So chatbots are what most people think of AI. Like if I tell somebody, hey, what do you think of AI? They're going to say ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is really just a chatbot. ChatGPT is a model itself, but the interface that we use is just a chatbot, and a chatbot is just an interface that allows us to give the AI inputs, and the AI gives us outputs back. Now, a lot of these chatbots have actually evolved to being more of what I would call an agent, but we'll cover that in a little bit. And so, all the AI labs like Google or OpenAI with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, or Anthropic with Claude, all of them have some sort of chatbot, right? And so they use their models, their large language models, and they input that software into these chatbots, or actually into all of these, into RAG, into voice, into agents. But anyways, let's start with chatbots. It's what we see. I think chatbots are for lawyers are the best for drafting. So drafting, let's say like a contract or a motion, or and for ideas, just to kind of ping pong back and forth, talk strategy, and help us learn and help us think about the world. So let's pull up a chatbot. So I have Claude up right now. It's my favorite type of chatbot right now, just because the Anthropic, the Claude model, I think has the best AI models currently for law. And so let's do the same example that we did before. So let me say, finish my sentence. Hello, how are, and let's see what it gives me. All right, it's saying, how are you doing today? Okay, so when I typed finish my sentence, hello, how are, that is what I call a prompt. That is what everybody calls a prompt. It's just the input that we're giving the chatbot. A lot of times these AI tools have what are called system prompts, which is some sort of prompt in the background that you don't see. And a lot of the legal AI tools have that. Like if I tell Harvey the same thing, like hello, how are, finish my sentence, it might give me a different response just because of the system prompt. And Harry's actually thinking like, what is this? Yeah, see, so it gives me, hello, how are you? Is there anything else I can help you with today? One thing about these AI tools is that if you prompt it differently, it'll create a new set of like next word predictions and it'll give you a different output, right? So if I say same thing, so if I say finish my sentence, hello, how are, and I say like, please finish my sentence with just one word. Don't output anything else. And then I say the same thing, then it might give me a different output. The hope is that it just says you or you doing or something like that. Yeah, you. So as you can see, the prompt changes how the chatbot acts. The good thing about this is that as lawyers, we're really good with words. And so I think lawyers are very primed to create really good prompts to instruct the AI on what you want. So one caveat that I will give before I continue to give examples is that there are a lot of different strategies that lawyers can use to help get better outputs out of this and to help verify that the information is correct and all sorts of things. I'm not going to go over that. That could be a whole video in itself. That could be several videos in itself. I'm just going to act as if the AI always gave me the correct answer or as if AI always gave me what I wanted just for for the sake of time. So as a lawyer, I might say something else. I might say like, please draft a memo explaining how the eviction process works in Orange County, Florida. I might tell it something like act as a junior associate writing to a partner, right? And then I'm going to tell it one specific thing. Uh, that way doesn't this chatbot does not go into agent mode because if not, it'll go into agent mode, and I want to save the agent stuff for the end. So just output the words. I don't need a word. Document just the memo in the chatbot. Okay, so hopefully it understands that. Okay, perfect. Because what Claude does is now the chatbot has agentic capabilities, and so now it'll create like a whole Word document. So we'll save that for the end. Anyways, so here's what it output. So pretty good output, right? So this is pretty good for drafting, as we can see. It's really good with words. It looks correct. One of the issues, well, there's might be a lot of issues. Like this might, how do we know it's correct? It has no links. So a chatbot on its by itself is not super effective because we still have to go look at the statute. We don't even have a link. We're still gonna have to go through Google. Another issue is that these models are trained, like I said, they're trained on vast amounts of data, but that data has a knowledge cutoff date. So if I Google, so I'm using, okay, so let's say Claude Opus, the training model, the knowledge cutoff date is May 2025. So let's say this statute changed in June or in January 2026, then it would not know, the AI has no way of knowing that that statute has changed. And so it's just outputting what it was trained under. Now, a lot of the tools, the current tools like the agents and the RAG, are able to mitigate these issues so that you can get current law, right? But the chatbot, as it is not very good at that. It's just gonna tell you what it knows, and that creates a lot of problems with hallucinations, which again could be a whole nother video. But what I want you to see is that AI is pretty good. Like these chatbots are pretty good at just at creating text, right? Like if I wanted to create, let's say this is a memo. Let's say I want to create a contract between tenant A and landlord B that states that if tenant A does not pay or landlord in 2 weeks, they will file an eviction under the Florida statute. I know I have typos, but I'm trying to go fast. All right. So now it's going to draft a contract, and now it's doing its. Let me stop it so it doesn't do agentic stuff again. Just the words, no files. Just the words in the chat bot. Okay. All right. Cool. So now it's making like some sort of contract, right? So pretty good for drafting, right? And it all looks good. This probably has been trained on a bunch of contracts, so it's seen and it's trained on the law. But again, all of this is just statistical, like pattern recognition and creating the next most likely word. But pretty good, right? Like I could go and copy and paste this and then look up the information and draft it, right? So that's where that's the chatbot at its essence. So maybe another thing that I could say is just to create ideas like, what do you think is a reasonable time to evict this person if they don't pay? Is 2 weeks enough? Right? So it's like ideas, and you're just asking questions, right? So it's okay, it's quite aggressive. Anyways, you can keep going back and forth for days, but this is what most people use, how most people use AI right now. Pretty simple, but again, this has probably the most red flags because you can't really trust a lot of this information. You have to really verify it, especially if you're using a chatbot. Now, one thing that you could do is you could add a web search to the chatbot, which is new in a lot of these chatbots. You could say, can you search the web to confirm that the Florida statute you used is correct? Right. So now if you enable this, now it's searching the web. And so see it needs to clarify an important detail, right? And now it's giving me a link that I can then use to verify. So right. So one thing that I could do is it's saying here in the contract, I drafted 3 business days. So I could maybe look up here. Oh, it's not even giving me the correct. Let me ask it for the correct link. Can you give me the link and verbiage of the statute to verify? Anyways, this is a good way to kind of mitigate the issue, right? And so, okay, you're hereby notified. So I'm gonna verify this, right? So the notice language must be in this form. So how can I verify this? I can go here and I can Command F. You are hereby notified, and I can go read this and verify it, right? So that's one way that we can now start mitigating the hallucinations that a chatbot might give us. But at its core, again, it's pretty good for drafting, pretty good for ideas, but it needs more, like web search or like RAG, which I'll go over next, to really start giving you a better output. Which takes me to RAG. So RAG is what's called retrieval augmented generation. And so basically what it does is the AI has some sort of database in the background. The database has a bunch of files. So think about like your file storage of all your client matters. Let's say the AI has access to all of those. And what it can do is it can basically take your prompt, match that prompt to the most likely chunks of text in your database, and then pull those chunks of text. And not only pull those chunks of text, but also run those chunks of text through the AI along with your prompt, and then give your response based on what your prompt was, using those sources as support. Now, The way that one of my professors explained it to me is it turns your prompt into math, and your files are in the background as math, and then it combines the math together and then gives you an output as math that it then translates into English for you to understand. So the good thing about RAG is that it only uses if you prompt it the right way, or if you use like the correct system, it only uses the information that is in that file base. It can still hallucinate. There's a lot of, I mean, there's still hallucination risks, but it's highly mitigated from just using the chatbot how we were earlier. And so examples of RAG are Westlaw, CoCounsel, LexisNexis, Protege. So what they do is they have their database of case law and secondary sources. And so when you ask it their AI a question, it will pull the case law, and it will, again, whatever you ask it, it's going to turn into math. It's going to say, how does it map to this case law text? It's going to pull chunks from that case law text, and it's going to return it to you as an answer. And in a way that's usable for you, depending on what your prompt was. Um, and the good thing about RAG is that a lot of times these RAG tools, they'll give you like a link to the actual source that it was pulled from. So a good thing about that is that you could verify it, right? So I think RAG at its core is really good for research across a broad range of files, and it's really good for verification. And there are ways that you can prompt it further to to make it easier to verify. So let's check out some RAG tools. So the first RAG tool that I want to use is CoCounsel. So CoCounsel now has this AI deep research, which is pretty cool, which is almost like a chat bot mixed with a RAG. But the regular CoCounsel is pretty good too. It's kind of the same thing, just it doesn't do what they call like thinking, which thinking just basically what it does is it sends out a lot of different queries. It might search in different ways across different files, and I don't know. It's a little bit more complicated than I want this video to be, but it does a little bit of higher reasoning based on what you say. Like you might say like, "Hey, give me the Florida statute," and so it might look for the Florida statute, but it might also, on its own, go look for cases that have to do with the Florida statute and then pull those. So it does like a step further. But anyway, for this video, I might say, "What or give me some Florida cases in which there was a legal dispute about eviction following I don't know, something like that, right? So now CoCounsel is going to go, and it's going to go in the background. It's going to basically, based on this prompt that I gave it, on this give me some Florida cases in which there was a legal dispute, it's going to turn that into math. And now on the back end, it's going to say like, okay, what cases do I have in this millions of cases database where some of the text maps is similar, not one to one similar, but like has to do with what this person asked me, right? And so that's what it's doing right now. But what I might have done before is I might have looked up like Florida law on here and just done like a Boolean search, right? So I might have just said something like Florida eviction dispute. And obviously I want to be more detailed than this, but let's see, I might get like 148 cases. So what RAG is doing is it's looking through, not in a perfect way, but it's looking through these 148 cases. And, in theory, it might have more, it might have less, just depending on how this prompt is worded. And it's trying to seek like the most relevant information from what I asked. Okay, so while it's doing its research, another thing that I could do is and this is how I like to use RAG. You could also download all these cases. I'm only going to download 20 of them. And you might put them in a RAG system that might even be better than this, so that you could kind of do more of a freestyle. I saw a LinkedIn post a few weeks ago, and it said that like the foundational AI models, so like Google or Anthropic or ChatGPT, are more effective because they don't have all these guardrails around them. And I think, which I do agree with, but the issue is that most lawyers don't really know how to use them and don't know how to verify them, so it's more risky to use them. Like CoCounsel is less likely to hallucinate or give you wrong information than if I were to use Claude, but it's not might not give me as effective or as like a freestyle solution that we would want. Okay, so this is taking forever. So let's go to NotebookLM. Okay, so NotebookLM is Google's RAG tool, and I think it's the best tool out there right now for RAG. These things change all the time, so take that how you may. So I'm gonna upload all those cases that I just downloaded. So I'm going to upload all these, right? And so maybe I'm looking for a case where the eviction was invalid, right? So let me ask it now. What cases was eviction invalid? So let's see what it says. So again, it's mapping what I asked, and now it's searching across all of these. So it's going to try to look for somewhere where the plaintiff, assuming the plaintiff was the tenant, and the eviction was invalid. So so RAG does take a little bit because it has to search through all the sources. It's not like the chatbot. Chatbot's more. Okay, so Alfonso, right? So Alfonso was one of these cases that we saw from the search, but anyways, the eviction judgment was reversed. So if I want to look more into Alfonso, I might say like, what happened in Alfonso? Give me the facts, the procedural history. I might do like a case brief. Issue, holding, reasoning, and rule. Right, so now I'm asking it specifically. So now it's going to look into Alfonso, and I'll show you something cool about RAG that makes it really easy to verify the information. All right, here you go. So, all right, so the parties. It involved Michael Myuri and Eduardo Alfonso. Okay, so one cool thing about RAG is that a lot of times it outputs the text here, right? So here it output, if I click on this one, and I think a lot of the tools do this now. So it says Eduardo Alfonso and Jeanette Garcia, right? So it's like, how can we mitigate hallucination as we verify the text? Well, in RAG, it saves the text, like we have the text available to us, and then we have the source, right? So let's see. Here it says, all right, so we can tell it's Michael Myuri. So let's see, Michael Myuri and Eduardo Alfonso. Eduardo Alfonso, where's he at? Here it is. Okay, so that's easy, right? Like any AI can verify it can verify who the parties were, right? But if I look at like, for example, the reasoning, it has like, I might ask it something like, can you explain the judge's reasoning and give me the exact quotes that led the judge to reverse? Let's see what it says here. Right. And the better we prompt, these are terrible prompts, but the better the prompt, we'll get better output. But I'm just trying to show you how it's able to kind of pull information from this and allow you to verify, and also sometimes even allow you to create arguments based off of this. So RAG is pretty good because it almost allows you to do the same drafting that a chatbot would. Well, it does. It allows you to do the same drafting, but it allows you to kind of back it up with information. So, okay. So let's see what the judge said. So the judge said, the court reasoned that the tenants were essentially arguing a valid defense that full payment was made, right? So if I look here, let's see. So if I read this, it makes sense, right? And also, if I say valid defense, see, I'm getting the actual text. So if we're quoting something and we're trying to find it easily, then this is a good way to verify our information is by using RAG. So it's very useful for lawyers. It's a very useful tool. So, okay. This is Notebook LM. I recommend it. I think that everybody should use it. And you saw how easy it was to just upload the PDFs. Let's go back to Westlaw. So, okay, Westlaw, on the other hand, gives you like a summary, and this is a very broad prompt, so the information might not be that great, but and I do think it used the deep research. I don't know, they just changed this, but anyways, look, it pulls up the Florida statute 8320, just how it did. I think it actually pulled a different one. But anyways, I'm not gonna look into the law too much. Let's see. Okay, so here's some cases, right? So it has Bell v. Kornblatt. And the good thing, okay, so in Bell, the fourth held that a 3-day notice is not essential to subject matter jurisdiction, but serves as a condition. I might ask it, well, I'm not gonna ask it anything, right? So it just kind of gives me the information and it pulls cases. Now, the thing here that I don't like about the legal rag tools, like Lexis does the same thing, and well, Harvey doesn't have case law, is that it just kind of arbitrarily gives you the cases based on what you typed. I think the Notebook LM way is a little bit better because you could kind of give it the sources that you think are good first. So maybe you could start with, some sort of search like this, like a Boolean search, and then upload it, or you could use something like this. But the thing with this RAG search on these legal tools is that it doesn't output. I mean, I just got two, three cases here that I'm looking at, which if you have a good prompt, it might be better because then you don't have to dig through. But I just noticed that I miss cases when I just use this chat, this chat like RAG tool. But anyways, the most important part about this whole RAG section is that you're able to upload sources or you have sources in some sort of database, you're able to prompt it, and the AI gives you information based on those sources and allows you to verify it, right? So if I want to verify the statute, I can click on it, it shows it, and I could even go and open up another tab and see it. Awesome. So, okay. So let's move on. Okay, so we gone over chatbots, we gone over RAG. The next thing is voice. And voice is interesting because it could do it could do a few things that I think are underutilized. So, okay, what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna open up this app, and it's called Granola. It records your voice in real time, and it transcribes it using AI. So as I'm talking right now, it's getting it. So as you can see right here, it's really literally getting what I'm saying. It's not perfect, but it is using AI, and the AI models are pretty good. I'll show you another one here in just a second. But I think voice is really good for documentation and summarization. By documentation, like right now when I'm talking, it's getting everything that I'm saying, so it's documented. The other thing is that I could also use it to summarize. Like I'll show you in a second how you could summarize. Like a lot of times the way to summarize, like if you have like a Zoom recording, the most popular, recording tool right now for voice AI is Zoom, and so you'll at the end get like some sort of summary or like AI notes. There's a lot of different AI tools that like take notes of your video calls and then give you like a summary, right? So that's what I mean by summarization. There's another way that is summarized that involves RAG, which I will show, but and documentation. But I think one underutilized thing that I didn't put in here, and I'll actually write it down, and that is, oh, it's not that, and that is dictation, right? And by dictation, I mean that I can go into these AI tools, and these AI tools have what's called voice mode, and you could talk to it quite quickly, right? So if I want to write a prompt about a 3-day notice and how to create it in Florida, then I could just tell the AI to do it, right? So something like that. And then you give it, oh, and then take it, right? So maybe I say something like, please give me instructions on how to create a 3-day notice for Florida. Boom. And now it's a prompt and it's easy. Okay. So I think that's something that people are not really using. Also, oh, there it is. There's a tool called Whisperflow that I use a ton. And Whisperflow, I literally have like a shortcut. I'm gonna hit like a key on my computer, and now I'm going to be able to talk to it. And you could use it across any different type of chat, right? Like even if I pull up my notes or I pull up an email, I can now talk to it, and then it just gets it. Like you can dictate it. The beneficial part about this for lawyers is that you can talk a lot faster than you can type. Again, when you type, is a lot more thought out and the output is better for writing. But if you're just going back and forth, ping-ponging with AI for ideas, it's much easier, much better to just use voice AI and talk back and forth to it in natural language because AI is going to interpret it pretty well. It's like you speaking is going to be good enough for the AI, depending on what you're using it for, but in most parts it will. Okay, let's go back to this granola example. So now I've been talking for a little bit. Where's granola? Oh, here's granola. All right, so I can ask, granola's cool because I could actually ask it, what have I been talking? Actually, let me talk to it. Please explain what I've been talking about. This is like prompt inception, right? So I just use this tool, this AI voice tool. This other thing is recording me, and I'm asking it a question. So this has its own built-in chatbot and RAG. So this information here, this speaking, is being saved in a database and is being used as RAG to say, like to explain based on my prompt what I'm asking about, right? So if I ask it, please explain what I've been talking about, it's going to kind of give me an answer. I might even say like, quote me on the most important thing that I said, right? It's gonna pull the actual quote. Sometimes it pulls the actual quote, but it's not doing it right now. One thing that I've noticed, and on a side note, so one thing that I've noticed about these RAG tools is that their context window. So what a context window is basically like how much text it could take in. So sometimes if you've used ChatGPT a lot or any of these tools, it'll say like, hey, you run out of space. You need to start a new chat. That's called the context window. And so what I've noticed from RAG tools is that it runs out of context faster. And I think that's because it's taking in all this information on the back end from these sources. And that's why you can't like continually like if I give like for example, you'll see if I give Notebook LM, which is a very powerful RAG, a lot of text, it's just not going to it's not going to go. I have to give it it has a shorter context window. I'm not sure why that is, but just something to note. Like even here on Granola where I'm asking it questions, I probably can't ask it like a super long question. And the answers also tend to be shorter for these RAG tools. I think it has something to do with a context window. Okay, anyways, that is voice. I think it's very good, right? So if I end this granola note, like let's say I stop recording, I tell it to generate notes. This is the summarization part of it. And the documentation right here, all the if you're doing like a client call, like it's really good to keep track of this. There's a lot of secure. Granola has a secure enterprise version where it's like confidential or whatnot. There's other tools that are like that. But it's also summarizing, right? Like if I want to send this to my junior associate, say like, hey, this was my call with our client today based on our contract negotiation with I don't know the subcontractor or their tenant. You could tell them like, hey, draft a memo based off of this, or you could tell AI to do it using this. Actually, very something that I do a lot is let's say I copy this transcript and I go and I take it here and I say, can you create a quick memo on how to use voice AI with Granola or how or how voice agents work to send to my junior associate? And I might give it, I'm just gonna, it's wrong. All right. So I pasted this whole transcript. It's gonna give me a bad response because I'm just yapping. But anyways, write it in memo format. Right. So I'm gonna tell it to write it in memo format. It's a little malfunction here. All right, let's see. So write in memo format, and it should write in the memo format. All right, one thing that you maybe or may not have noticed. Okay, sorry. So we got the memo. See, so pretty cool. So I just took a transcript and a prompt. That's content. I'm giving the model context. Again, we could do a whole nother video on prompting in the context. And I ended up with a memo to send to my junior associate. And so you could think about all the different ways that you could use AI, like and freestyle it like this, using RAG, using these cases, taking these cases, downloading them, taking information from them. You can just, create a whole. It's really a special time right now, and I think that's why everybody should learn it. But anyways, I want to go on a little side note. So if you haven't noticed, I've been using Haiku 4.5. That's actually Claude's worst model. So I want to talk about models for a little bit. So models, let's say Anthropic models. Okay. So here's the models. So a model is basically the piece of software that is running on the back end of this chatbot. So the model is actual LLM, right? So this is the model right here. The chatbot, it's still Claude, right? But the LLM is using different models. So Claude, for example, has these. It has Opus 4.6, Sonnet 4.5, and Haiku 4.5, right? And so they have descriptions and all these, like for example, if I go to OpenAI models, I'll get a different type of model, right? So I have 5.2, mini, and so I'll be able to like compare them. So all these have like these compares. You know, so the best model for coding, the smartest non-reasoning model. So if you want to learn more about it, like just read up on it or even ask ChatGPT or Claude like what the difference is. But basically the way that I use it is for chatbots, I'm always going to use Opus 4.6 or like the reasoning model. The reason for that is because a lot of the work that I do you need to like think and you need to be accurate. And this model is just better for that. If you're just spitting out ideas and going back and forth, maybe Sonnet is better. Sonnet is really good. I mean, if you use any of these like newer models, they're better than any of the old models, even the reasoning ones. But I always like to use the most intelligent model, like the highest model, unless I have to pay for the model itself. So Claude, I just have my subscription and I can use it, basically unlimited. If I have some sort of API tool or some sort of tool that's like usage based, and I might not use Opus all the time. So the way that I would think about it is like always use the best model, if you're doing legal work, always use the reasoning model because it will go a step further in making sure that it's giving you information that is relevant to your prompt. And it'll go above and beyond. It doesn't mean it's going to give you more information. It's going to give you better information usually, right? Whereas Sonnet, it's just going to go through just one step and one level and then say like, okay, this is the answer. It's going to be faster, but it's not going to be as good. So for example, if I'm telling Opus to draft a contract, Opus might reason and might say, okay, I need to go do a web search on the Florida statute for evictions. Whereas Sonnet might just say like, "Oh, I had this in my training. Let me give it to you." Right? Opus will go one step further, say like, "Oh, we need to make sure that this statute is correct." So think about it kind of that way. It's just a little bit smarter, quote unquote smarter. It just kind of it's running more queries in the background, and it has like more engineering in the background to help guide you to the right answer. Okay, the last thing that I want to cover are agents. And agents are super cool because they're pretty new to the scene. I think you hear a lot about like, oh, AI agents this, AI agents that. Like, I don't think on the legal side we have a true AI agent that works like as an end-to-end agent. The way that I would describe an agent is end-to-end, which means that once you give it a prompt, it will actually do some sort of work to give you the final work product, right? So when you use a chatbot and I'm telling it to draft this 3-day notice or this contract, it's not going to give me like the Word document that I'm going to send to the client. It's not going to give me the final work product. And I think that's what agents try to do. It's they try to give you the final work product. So right now, I think the closest that we have to an actual agent for legal tech is Harvey. So if I ask Harvey to draft me a client ready 3-day notice per Florida statute, it's going to do a few different things. Hopefully, we'll see. It's going to assess my query and hopefully it's going to search the web, right? So, okay, so it's calling the transfer to draft tool. So what it's doing is it's opening up its own version of Microsoft Word and it's writing this and it's formatting it in a way that I could use it, right? And so what I might tell it is that the the amount the amount in question is $4,000, right? So as I tell it, it will actually update it and it'll get it closer to like the work product. Like I won't have to go in there and like edit everything myself, right? Now a chatbot can kind of do this, but Harvey just goes one step further. But even so, like these tools are not really agentic. Like I'm still gonna have to go in here and edit everything. What I do think that will happen is either these AI models or there's coding tools right now that are more agentic because they'll actually write the code and they'll ship the information, they'll ship the website, and you'll be able to see the website like basically done on your end. We're not quite there yet for law. What we do have though is Claude just and other, I mean, all the AI, all the AI labs have some sort of something like this, but Claude has this thing called co-work, which is kind of like an agent. So I could tell it to, okay, I could tell it to search Florida statutes and find out how to evict someone. And I want you to create the following: proper 3-day notice in PDF format. Okay, so let me say, I want you to act as an experienced housing attorney and create the following. Proper 3-day notice format. Say a step-by-step guide on how to go about the eviction process in Florida. And let's say I wanted to make a table of the different costs associated with it. Let's put Excel file, say PDF. Let's say Word file. Okay, these also in let's say here also include all relevant source links and format it in Garamond font. Let's say let's give it like things, right? Because for an agent, we want it to be end-to-end. We want it to create all these things, and it's like send them to me as if I was the partner and you were the associate, right? So proper 3-day notice in PDF format with letterhead saying, I don't know, law, bandit, law at the top. Okay, so these should be 3 separate files. All right, so an agent is going to output all 3 of those. Now, I'm not really sure what we're going to get, but I think we'll get something like fairly good. And again, all of these tools, like if I go to, well, while this goes, if I go to ChatGPT, you just go, there's a thing called agent on it. So agent mode, and it does kind of the same thing, right? But I think once we get to like real agentic AI, like the AI will be able to like send emails and call people and all sorts of things. Okay, so here, see, it's asking me questions. So what type of 3-day notice do you need? Non-payment of rent. And so these are tools that have been added recently. It was like asking you questions to make better output. So include tenant name. I'm gonna say use placeholders. Okay, so let's give it some time. It actually takes some time. It takes like, sometimes even up to 10 minutes to create something. But as you can see, you'll see it start like it'll create a plan and it'll search the web. It'll take screenshots of the web. And again, this specific agentic tool cannot go in and click on websites, which Claude Code and a lot of the coding tools can do so, and it's very effective. And there's other like new tools coming out like Claudebot and whatnot. But right now, like I feel like this is like the most viable way for to have an agent as a lawyer, unless you're like super technical. But I think, co-work is pretty solid. Okay, so one cool thing about agents is that they have these things called skills, right? And so skills are basically access to other technical tools, like for example, access to Microsoft Word or Google Docs, or access to Excel, access to PowerPoint, access to email, access to so in the programming world, we call it APIs. So this is the kind of API that it's using to be able to connect and be able to use like that skill. And so it's really helped these AI tools turn into agents because now they can manipulate the other tech, other technologies that lawyers use, like Word or like Excel, and be able to do things with it, which was not really possible up until a few months ago. Okay, so we finally took about 10 minutes, but see, so what it did is now I have like a full end-to-end basically tool. So if I open this up, hopefully, hopefully I'm able to view it. No? Okay, actually I opened it up in Adobe. So all right, so we have like this is pretty good, right? So it's like an end-to-end like thing, and it did everything that I told it. It's using the font that I told it to use. All right, so pretty good. And if we look at, let's see this one. All right, so eviction process. So it's like a guide, nicely formatted, Garamond font, like I told it. Shout out Chicago Law Review. Look, so it's giving me like a step by step, and oh, it didn't give me the sources. Okay, I should have put the source links in here. Anyways, not perfect, and it gave me an Excel sheet, right? So I would call this more agentic, although it would be good if I was like, hey, send this email to, you know, XYZ, and they would actually send it as an email. Now, the issue is that this might not be correct, and it's honestly very easy to tell if this was created by AI just by the color and the formatting. But, anyways, it would be good if it had a link so I could verify this. But again, that's part of the prompting too. But anyways, this is probably the closest that it gets to agentic right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if by the time some of you are watching this video, we have a much better tool, or even, this co-work tool has gotten better. I also really like using Claude Code if you're a little bit more technical. It's kind of like the core work, but you can do a lot more things with it. It's a lot more versatile. But anyways, that's kind of the tools that lawyers use in AI. And I hope that by watching this, you got a pretty good idea of how AI can make a difference in your practice. The best way that I recommend to start using AI is just to literally just go in how I did in this video and just start playing around with the tools, and you'll learn a lot. I think it's very important to start learning prompting because the output quality that you get from these tools is very based on your prompting, and prompting is really not that difficult. People say it's like an art, or I've studied prompts. I've taken courses on prompts, and a lot of times I use very simple prompts that people are like, share your prompts with me. I'm like, I just write it clearly. It's not like a whole. I think that's like a lot of propaganda. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I'll see you next time.